Hi, everyone. We're going to get started probably in about 1 or 2 minutes. Thanks for joining us this morning. While we wait, welcome everyone just to quickly introduce yourself into the chat and maybe share which neighborhood you're streaming in from in New York City. Okay, let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Guillermo Gomez, Director of Programs at Urban Design Forum, and one of the organizers of this fellowship. I'm joined by my colleagues Jacob Moore, Executive Director of the Architectural League of New York, and Ming Lin, Program Coordinator at New City Critics. If you're still getting to know us, at Urban Design Forum, we connect and inspire New Yorkers to design, build, and care for a better city. We're a member-powered organization of 1,200 civic leaders committed to a more just future for our city. We believe the built environment, our neighborhoods, buildings, public spaces, and infrastructure shapes our city's health, culture, and economy. We bring together New Yorkers of diverse backgrounds and experiences to learn, debate, and design a vibrant city for all. We recognize that so few people have an opportunity to shape the public conversation on the future of New York City. With New City Critics, we want to see a kaleidoscopic coverage of not only the marquee projects in New York City, but also on the transformation of our neighborhoods. We want writers to speak to the public and not just to those engaged with design development on a daily basis. We want to see new, courageous, and informed voices emerge through this fellowship and ignite conversation on our collective future. So thanks for being here. I hope you'll apply. I'd like to pass the mic first to Jacob to share a bit more about the league and the background of the fellowship.
Sure. Thanks, Guillermo. Hi, everybody. I'm Jacob Moore. I'm the Executive Director of the Architectural League. The New City Critics program is spearheaded by Mariana Mogalevich, who's editor-in-chief of the League's publication Urban Omnibus, an online publication dedicated to observing, understanding, and shaping the city. Mariana's currently on sabbatical leave, but will be back with us here in the fall for the start of the fellowship. Urban Omnibus and New City Critics are programs of the Architectural League, which is an independent forum that supports critically transformative work in the allied fields that shape the built environment. We do this through initiatives and programs that aim to stimulate thinking, debate, and action on today's converging crises of racism, inequity, and climate change, all in service of a more livable and just world. To give you some background, the League and Urban Design Forum created New City Critics in honor of Michael Sorkin, who was a beloved board member of both of our organizations. Michael's death was a huge loss to the world of thinking and action in architecture and urbanism. He was a spectacularly good writer and fearless and funny and adept at exposing and explaining the systems of power that are woven throughout the built environment. Michael was also a mentor and publisher for so many young thinkers and writers. So we launched the New City Critics Fellowship in 2022 with an inaugural cohort, excuse me, of six, um, uh, I believe, yeah, images are on the left of that. And we'll be wrapping up our third cohort, which is the group on the right, on June 17th at DCTV at a celebratory event with a new publication of their writings and conversations with the fellows. So we all really hope that you'll all join us there. I'll now pass the mic to Ming Lin to share a bit more about the fellowship.
Thanks, Jacob. Hi, everyone. I'm Ming Lin, the program coordinator at New City Critics. So what is New City Critics and why should you apply? So this fellowship hopes to address two issues at once.
Oh, Ming, you muted.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, so the fellowship hopes to address two issues at once. On the one hand, legacy media continues to shrink and full-time critics are disappearing. And even since we started the fellowship, we're continuing to see newspapers and magazines shrinking in number altogether. And secondly, a small circle of voices dominates the existing conversation with attention to limited topics and a narrow vision of what cities can be. So this all means that there are fewer accessible, compelling stories interrogating how cities are made and for whom. And still, the critical writing we do have remains in some ways extremely powerful. Justin Davidson and Michael Kimmelman in New York, we can sway a lot of thinking. Christopher Hawthorne in LA moved from being the architecture critic of the LA Times to being the chief design officer for the city government, but are a small group of critics with the rare prominent platforms attending to the full extent of systems, spaces, and projects that define the very contours of our lives. Yeah, so the need for diverse perspectives becomes especially clear when we consider some of the emblematic issues facing New York City today, such as how new city policies like the fast and free buses are reshaping the future of urban design and mobility in our neighborhoods citywide, or what Trump's Penn Station and its presidential design and branding signals for the future of New York City, the role that new casino proposals are playing in neighborhood development and politics, especially in historic immigrant communities, or how city-owned grocery stores plan to combat food scarcity through subsidized rent to vendors. So these are by no means co-extensive with the range of subjects of inquiry we're hoping to see. But if an essential goal of criticism is to see more deeply and help an audience of readers or viewers understand why something matters and what its origins and impacts are, all of these and many more are topics that should be examined and written about from a diverse range of perspectives and life experiences. So this year, the cohort tackled subjects including the deployment of medieval weapon-style tactics in the subway to combat fare evasion, the increasing deployment of circular building strategies, the Queensway Project, a new community kitchen in the Lower East Side, the ubiquitous ghost kitchen Wonder, various buried waterways in the city, and what we can learn from them in our era of climate crisis. As Jacob mentioned, for their final projects, we'll be launching with a final event, and the fellows will be publishing longer form essays on the subjects including Uber's increasing role as a healthcare infrastructure, the city's industrial zones, and civic regalia. I'm going to pass it back to Guillermo now to share who we're hoping to engage with this next round of the fellowship.
Cool. Thank you, Ming. So we're excited to build our fourth cohort of New City Critics. And this fellowship is much as of an exercise of redefining critical writing about the city as it is about shaping a new group of fearless voices. We often find ourselves in the design or academic profession talking amongst ourselves in quite siloed spaces. So how are we communicating the issues we care so deeply about in cities to new and broader audiences? Today, we wanted to point out who we're hoping to engage with our next cohort. We invite applications from early to mid-career writers or urbanists deeply committed to making cities legible to broad audiences. That's a big goal. Candidates should possess experience in both writing and urban practice, though we expect the balance to vary. We encourage submissions that demonstrate prior publication and significant engagement with the field. Perhaps you're a designer or urban practitioner by day with a deep passion for writing on the weekends and looking for opportunities to build a larger portfolio of critical writing. Or maybe you're a published scholar or journalist with a deep interest and focus on the way neighborhoods are designed and developed. We think those that straddle these two areas will see the greatest benefit of the fellowship's offering. In addition, we welcome storytellers of varying ages and experiences, writers, journalists, designers, planners, scholars, advocates, artists, curators, organizers, DIY newsletter writers, zine publishers, podcasters, photo essayists, and others. We read those out because I think we are very open to disciplinary background and interdisciplinary background as well. And we see these people committed to producing real critical work about the shape and experience of our city. You should also want to build a community. We aim to build a cohort of 6 individuals who will lean on each other's curiosities and grow together. Beyond support in developing projects and skills, applicants should be searching for co-conspirators, as we call them, to broaden their understanding and imagination. And then lastly, fellows must live and work in New York City metropolitan area for the duration of the program to be considered. Our biweekly Tuesday sessions will be meeting in person at either the League or the Forum's offices, so remote participation is not an option. If you're not based in New York City when applying, you're just going to need to provide proof or a plan of demonstrating your commitment to being in New York City during the fellowship in your submission materials. So with that, I'll pass that back to Ming to share more information on the format and the timeline.
Okay, so all the dates on the screen are also included in the Award Force application portal if you've opened that up. And yeah, the applications are due in just under 2 weeks on June 11th by midnight. And we'll be notifying applicants the first week of August whether you've been selected to participate in our cohort of 6 critics. We'll be kicking off with an orientation on Thursday, September 3rd. And the fellowship will run through June 2027 on a bi-weekly basis, meeting on Tuesdays, and ending with a final celebratory event in mid-June. The fellowship is organized into modules, each focusing on a specific critical skill and culminating in a new written work. So modules will focus on reading critical texts on the city, writing about urban spaces and projects, writing with and about actors in city making, and reviewing text objects and events. Sessions will include conversations and workshops with guest writers, editors, advocates, practitioners, and change makers in the built environment. In our first, second, and third cycles, we've had interlocutors, writers, journalists, editors, and scholars, including Garnet Cadogan, Carolina Miranda, Sukjang Hong, Alexandra Lang, Tanvi Misra, Samuel Medina, Avery Trufelman, Mazen Sidamed, among others. And so in these sessions, fellows will be developing and workshopping their writing together and with these guests. You'll be asked to complete regular writing assignments and publish selected work in a dedicated vertical on Urban Omnibus. And in addition to these assignments, you'll also be collectively organizing 2 public events in addition to the final celebratory event, which will be opportunities to further share your work and engage in wider discourse. So with this fellowship, you receive $7,500 honorarium for your participation. This is designed to accommodate previous employment elsewhere, and you'll meet on, as I mentioned, the bi-weekly basis. We'll meet twice a month in evenings for workshop and discussion sessions, including workshops focused on critical voice and craft and strategies and tactics for publishing in our current media world, editing workshops with outside editors and with the cohort, editorial support from the Urban Omnibus and New City Critics team to shape, refine, and produce original work for publication. And throughout the fellowship, we're aiming to connect participants with leading critics and editors, built environment professionals, or cultural institutions that are aligned with their interests and lived experiences. Or another slide for this, I'm not sure. The outcomes that we hope to achieve are to equip a new generation of critics from underrepresented backgrounds with new skills and a meaningful network, and to support them in carrying out powerful writing that makes urban processes legible and argue for a city that we all want to live in. We also see the fellowship in terms of beginning to shift a broader culture of writing about cities, not just about not just about investing in and publishing 6 people, but about a cohort working together to host a bigger discussion about the future of the city and critical writing. This year, we plan to work with fellows to organize public programming alongside the fellowship in order to open up the dialogues that we're having to a wider audience. So we're looking to the New City Critic Fellow for critical attention to the ways we plan and design and live in cities, and for the development of a new critical imagination, one that can manifest in new formats, new forums, and help the public understand the rich and complex and also fraught urban places and processes that give shape to our experiences. I'm going to let Guillermo talk us through the application portal.
Cool. Thank you, Ming. Yeah, let's walk through the Workforce application portal. The link to access that portal can be found on Urban Design Forum's website, the Architectural League's website, and Urban Omnibus's website, and is hosted by the Architectural League, that Workforce site. You'll need to register your email to submit the application process. You'll provide your contact information, and there will also be a voluntary self-identification. You'll be required to submit a resume or CV, writing samples, and respond to some prompt questions about you and your work. For your statement of interest, we ask that you tell us about a piece of writing on cities or contemporary phenomena or an issue in the city in the last year that sparked a strong reaction, whether agreement, critique, or curiosity. And then we want you to learn, then we want to learn a little bit more about you. Who are you and what motivates you to write about cities? What are you reading around city design, development, or the built environment, and what resonates with you? We want to understand your perspective on current urban writing and learn about the ideas and values driving your work. This is an opportunity to share the conversations you're engaged in, the critiques you have, and how you position yourself in the discourse on cities. We want you to submit one writing sample of published work that should not exceed 3,000 words, which should give us, again, a sense of your interest, curiosities, and perspectives. We may include multiple, you may include multiple short works or an excerpt from a longer work. And we define published quite broadly. The piece should be intended for a public audience and may appear in a print or online journal, newspaper, media outlet, a newsletter such as a Substack or another platform focused on reaching a broader public. For your second sample, you may submit another piece of writing, published or non-published, that does not exceed 2,000 words. Or alternatively, you may share another medium. If you work in audio, video, or visual storytelling, that ensures that you kind of show that demonstrates your voice, vision, or point of view. Next slide, Ming, on selection process. So some important dates to keep in mind. Award Force is going to close on June 11th at 11:59 p.m. And our 2026-2027 New City Critics Fellows will be selected by an incredible selection committee of writers, journalists, scholars, and editors that include Suk-Jun Hong at Curbed, Pulitzer Prize-winning author Alexandra Lang, Garnet Cadigan at MIT, Mariela Dabrile, Adeline Jackson from Hellgate, and Daphne Lundy, New City Critics alumni. New City Critics program staff will also conduct 30-minute interviews with semifinalists at the end of July, and selected New City Critics will be notified in early August. With that, we'll begin to welcome questions in the Q&A box. Again, I'm going to ask everyone, please direct your questions to the Q&A box option rather than the chat so that we have a centralized location and we can begin answering them. I will add that if we don't answer your question today, we will be compiling the most frequently asked questions and we'll share a link to that as well as this recording in the next week. So with that, I see some questions already opening up.
I can jump in on the first one. The first one says, does New York City metro area include tunnel bridge people? I'm thinking Jersey City or North Jersey towns. So for that, I think it's really about the obligatory nature of the meetings every 2 weeks and the additional events. So if the way you live in Jersey City or North Jersey is truly accessible to the city, and you think that making all of those certainly bi-weekly sessions, but also the 3+ public programs in the evening is workable for you, then that location would be workable.
And what time will the sessions be? So we're run from 6 to 8:30 p.m. For the bi-weekly sessions. And then I believe the public programs will be evening programs as well. Are submissions welcome from non-traditional applicants, i.e. non-writers, artists? I think that if you will have to supply published writing samples as part of the application. So if you satisfy that requirement, then non-traditional applicants welcome. But yeah, you have to show a demonstrated record of having published some work.
And I think just to extend that a little bit, there's the two writing samples, and the first one is really a writing sample for a reading public. So as opposed to the second one, which might be more experimental in terms of the media that it uses. but so that might apply a little bit more directly to people from, from non-traditional or non-writing backgrounds, but that force one really does need to be for a reading public.
Scrolling down, I see a question on resume CV about whether just jobs or we can or if folks can include a list of publications. I think, yeah, definitely encourage you to list any published writing experience in that one pager.
How many applications have we seen in previous years? I think ranging from like,
Like 1 to 300, two,
yeah, something
two
like
to
that.
2 to 350. I don't know. I'm not sure where the window is.
Yeah.
It's a competitive process, but I think that shouldn't stop you from applying. There was a piece about critical themes and focus areas. I think we really want to encourage, and I think at least in the past three cohorts, our fellows have written about New York City or the New York region. So I think definitely there's an encouragement to focus on New York City issues.
I'm seeing this question. I work part-time as a ghostwriter. Does published work extend to work you've drafted in someone else's name, or should it be explicitly authored by you? And I think that it would have to be authored by you as we are thinking about and considering like the critic as a figure within public discourse. So there has to be some also like indication that you, yeah, have a desire to like kind of grow your like profile and like public sort of persona. Um, However, if that, yeah, we have this like one area for more like experimental submissions, and if there was a way that that was, I don't know, you were framing that like that could be a more experimental yeah, submission.
I also
Uh,
just want to note that you're able to, in the Q&A, you can upvote other people's questions if you're seeing ones that resonate with you. That helps us foreground the ones that have resonance.
Um, yeah, you have to, for do we need to have work published? The answer is yes. This includes both like more kind of large scale official media outlets, but can also include like Substack or like blogs, but you have to demonstrate that you are speaking to a public, that you're like writing for readers. Yeah. Um, how early in one's career is appropriate? How much urban practice slash knowledge is typical? What if this is woven into other areas of interest? Um,
I think we're not so rigid here. Um, I think there's room for flexibility. I would say at least 3+ years we typically have seen in prior alumni, but again, that's hard to measure, especially if someone wears many hats. Um, so I don't know. Any thoughts on that, Jacob? Or
No, just
yeah,
there's not rigidity there, but there has to be the writing samples should sort of speak for themselves in that respect. So
right.
that can happen with next to no experience, but a lot of enthusiasm, or with lots of years of experience. And we've had certainly both profiles successfully, come into the fellowship. I'm going to answer this next one, but also just want to reiterate what Guillermo said before about adding questions to the Q&A and not into the chat, because we won't be able to review the chat live here. So if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A function because it's a different um, place for us to review. I was just going to answer, is it recommended to have a specific topic area that we represent as a writer, or is it also welcome to explore a wide variety of topics as long as you understand our perspective? This is sort of an extension of what Guillermo was saying before about the New York City and urbanism of it all. I think demonstrating an interest in New York City and urbanism and some knowledge is important, but a range of interests is also wonderful. So there's no you don't have to demonstrate that you're an expert on, transit or something like that. That's not necessarily a feature as the applications are reviewed. It's not a bad thing if that's like if you've developed a niche, but it's definitely not a requirement or doesn't necessarily like put some applications ahead of others.
I'll just answer this nuts and bolts question about the honorarium. It is dispersed in sort of three chunks. I don't remember exactly. I think in the fall.
Beginning, middle, and end. Yeah,
Yeah,
basically. Yeah.
basically. Yeah. Mm. If you have a pre-existing conflict for orientation, would you not be eligible? Um, I think I I think, but maybe Guillermo weigh in. Like, I think we could make an exception if that was the only absence you were going to have. I just need to have warning if yeah, people are going to be missing sessions. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I will stress that the orientation is a really great opportunity to meet your fellow cohort. So if there is any flexibility, I would really ensure to make it. But if you can't miss it because a prior family engagement or a wedding, like we understand, I think if there's an opportunity to zoom you in, at least to say hello at the beginning, that's definitely encouraged.
I can answer this first one about, or at least for me, it's first. I'm not sure how these come in. But would I still be eligible if I attend graduate school outside of the city, but live in the city? Certainly, I guess I'm not sure the timing of the grad school you're talking about. Like if you're currently in grad school or going to be in grad school elsewhere during the fellowship, that obviously would preclude coming to the sessions. But having spent time outside the city for whatever reason, in advance of the fellowship is definitely not a problem. So so yeah, not a problem if I'm reading that question right.
Um, so in terms of the public program, yeah, so you have throughout the fellowship, um, four, wait, five you'll be publishing five times corresponding to the different modules, pieces of different lengths ranging from 400 words to a final 2,000 word piece. Um, and sort of like through this cohort, like collective process, we'll be surfacing different like interrelated themes that you'll all be addressing. And so I think the idea is that as a group, we'll really be defining what those public programs are and what's most relevant to bring into wider conversation. And then we'll also be, yeah, corresponding into these different like publishing moments. So possibly as like it's a little bit open at the moment, like, and will be defined as a group, but will likely be pinned to, yeah, different kind of publishing moments throughout the fellowship.
I.e. to the curriculum itself. Yeah.
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 And I
Does
think,
either
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, Jacob.
No, I was going to ask if either one of you wanted to answer the interview question, just because you were
Oh, yeah.
last ones.
Sure. Yeah, those will be organized at the end of July, and those in the past have been very quick interview, or I think even 15 to 30 minutes max, right, Ming? An opportunity to engage with folks on the New City Critics staff, just an opportunity to, again, introduce yourself to the team, share a little bit about your sensibilities, goals, aim, and anything that you weren't able to kind of include in the application process in that short window. And then after that, we'll assemble the cohort of six.
Would public-facing exhibition texts and or curatorial essays also be considered a published writing sample? I think that's definitely something that can go in that like third category of a more alongside the two published works, like a more experimental work. Although I think that an exhibition text that had been like published in a catalog could comprise potentially, or yeah, could constitute one of the first writing samples as well.
Yeah. And I can answer this other one. That says I spent most of my career focused on community organizing and advocacy. I write as a hobby in my free time, but haven't had many opportunities to publish. I'm interested in the fellowship to explore writing and publishing. Am I still eligible? It really is about having the writing sample for the application. So depending on the nature of the exploration that you've done, that we try to be as sort of wide as we can in the range of formats that are accepted for that, especially for that first writing sample. But in terms of what counts as published, so like a newsletter, for example, or Ming was just saying like a wall text for an exhibition. So there is a range, but if the writing has only been for you, then I don't think that would rise to the level of like you wouldn't quite qualify. So it depends on if you've written and put something out into the world with a specific audience in mind, and it has reached some set of that audience. So that's kind of the threshold.
Yeah, and I think that also ties in with the following question as well around published academic papers. I would say I think the goal is having some type of published writing is to reach a broader audience outside of the academic space. Um, so if you're able to share any materials that have been published on a kind of blog format, encourage you to include that.
Um, yeah, to the CUNY professor, um, I think the schedule unfortunately will be conflicting because we already have set dates for Tuesday evenings. Um,
I can answer this one about what if publications are related to climate science research, publishing via city or national government bodies. That's kind of relates to the thematic question from before. If you happen to have a niche and have been writing in about climate science specifically for a while, that in and of itself isn't a disqualifying or a bad thing at all. But I think it's all about it kind of relates to the question Guillermo just answered about the audiences and the nature of the like when you say via city or national government bodies, it sort of just depends on what kind of a public audience you've been writing for. But the thematic specificity is definitely not a problem. Assuming you're interested in, exploring a wide range of formats and topics in the curriculum.
There's one question here about co-authorship. I think for the first writing sample, we're going to ask you to be the sole author on that writing piece. Correct, Ming? Yeah. And then the second piece, if you do have collaborative writing process, I think that would be the space to share that. But for that first writing sample, that needs to be authored solely by the applicant.
and I see this question. Oh, wait, where did it go?
Oh, I might have just the one about urbanism.
Uh, no, but oh, if it needs to be New York focused, I think. Is that the one? Anyways, I think if you're writing samples can be about other places as well, but just note that for the fellowship, we'll be focusing on New York City like issues and urban spaces. Um,
I can answer about mention of the honorarium being taken out if the current visa does not allow it. So fellows have to receive the honorarium, they have to be authorized to receive payment for this kind of a thing in the United States. So yeah, but I can't speak with more specificity about people's particular visa situations. But being able to legally receive payment for a fellowship such as this, which is an independent payment, is a requirement to receive it.
um, will there be a value in supplying a writing sample that is less critical in nature? For example, one critical piece and one published research paper or piece of journalism. I think there's value in that. I think if it like helps to illustrate sort of like the world that you're like the kind of yeah, overall constellation of like ways that you're like thinking about urban space, like by all means, like feel free to share that. Maybe I think in again like the third category, if you want to put something that's like a less straight up like piece that you're considering as criticism, like that might be the place.
Right. And we've seen journalists, both alumni and applicants in the past, apply and haven't maybe stretched their critical writing, given that the journalism space is quite different. So I think absolutely welcome journalists to apply in that sense.
I can maybe take on the this one that says, "How does New City Critics define urbanist?" I'm curious in this context how it's viewed and considered. We might each have slightly different answers, but Urban Omnibus, which is the venue, the publication through which fellows publish during the course of the fellowship, is a publication dedicated to urban observing, understanding, and shaping the city. And so I think urbanism for us is really anything about who makes the city. City is up to you also to define. Cities come in many shapes and sizes, but related to city making one way or the other. So I don't know if that's actually helpful. It's a pretty wide definition, but intentionally so.
Um, let's see. I'm just gonna, so you mentioned you were interested in seeing other mediums in the application as well. Would you be able to run through the related parts of the submission one more time? I'm wondering how much emphasis there is on past written work and what would a good balance be if we have work in another medium. In my case, I have a background in architecture and film and also have published writing samples. I think, and I also wanted to go back to the other question with the academic writing. I think that essentially it is important in your application to sort of like paint a picture of like where you want your like thinking around cities, like your critical thinking around cities to go. And if these additional like more less or like less conventional writing samples like help illustrate sort of like a cohesive like thread that you're tugging on with this thinking and a desire to like yeah put that into the world to be in conversation with peers, readers, and peers, like then you should include it, and it will be helpful for your application and for us figuring out like, yeah, this is a very cohort-based fellowship, and so we'll also be wanting to like really get a sense of you so we can choose 6 people that can really help each other grow.
And maybe in that, I'm seeing a question that says, are you looking to build a cohort interested in one thematic area, or will you look to round out the cohort with complementary, intersecting, or different subjects? This goes to for how are you looking for a cohort that will be well-rounded in how they write or engage media? There's definitely not a desire to collect a cohort that's interested in one specific thing, um, by any means. But I'd say insofar, just to extend what Ming was just saying, it's there is definitely thought given to building a cohort that we imagine will work together nicely, like work well as a cohort. But I don't think that that typically is anchored in any kind of expertise or thematic focus, necessarily. It's often much more about experiences and points of view. But uh, yeah, definitely no need to overthink the kind of thematic um, specificity.
Two questions I'm pulling up. One, can we submit a shortened version of a published work to fit the word limit? I think yes. I think just note that it's an excerpt from a larger piece. And then is there an age cutoff? No, there's no restrictions on age.
Um,
I see a question that I'd be curious for Guillermo and Ming to answer. How old can our publications be? Are there any time limits on how long, how long ago a publication could have been put out there?
I think they probably should be within the last couple years.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Um, I have a writing piece in the final stages of editing. Can it be submitted before it's published? I think that is fine. If you, and maybe you can make a note of like where that will go.
Yep, I would provide details on that and
Yeah.
just to note that none of the materials submitted are that they're purely for the application process. So if there is concern and from the potential publisher, just note that.
Um, do academic articles count as publications? Um, I think they like could, but you could not only submit academic publication. So it could be one of the writing samples. And I suspect you will need to excerpt it to fit the word count as well.
I
Uh,
see. Oh,
oh, go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead, Jacob.
One that says you mentioned alternative writing, and I believe you mentioned a podcast. So that would be for that second. multimedia submission. Do you have to be the host or can you be the guest interview? I think there's no rule, but I would also venture that like being an interviewee, what would be important again, since it's a writing fellowship, the it's important to be thinking always sort of through the lens of the writing and the audience that you're imagining. So as an interviewee, you're probably less charged with considering the audience to whom you're speaking than the host would be. So I would just say consider all of your samples from the perspective of like, are you considering a specific audience, developing a point of view, and crafting a message for that audience? So if as the interviewee on that podcast, you think that was the case and it's compelling in that sense for your application, then go for it. But do consider the kind of specificity of what you're delivering in whatever medium it is for that alternative one.
An earlier question here about what if I regularly publish in Substack but don't really have many subscribers? Is that still considered as publish? I personally, and I would hear from Jacob and Ming, I think yes. I think if the goal is to engage with a broader audience and then accessible to the broader public, I think yes, that does count.
I agree. Yeah. Um, so if a work has been published online, would you prefer the original draft document or is a linked printed screen document acceptable? I think either is fine. Yeah. But it would be the final draft. Yeah.
I see a question here that's an interesting one. Is it sole writing if I worked with an editor? Absolutely. I think that honestly, a big part of the fellowship is also is working with an editor, editors, and so that's a really important part of writing for publication that is focused on during the course of the fellowship. So if you can demonstrate that you have experience with that, and developing a work product, written work product with an editor, like that's a good thing, not a bad thing. If it's in your voice with an audience, as we've been saying for everything else, yeah.
Um, would a script of a comedy show on NYC history be considered a published work? I think yes, if you think, but yeah, again, you need three writing, or you need at least two writing samples. So, um, if you consider that like a form of criticism and like, yeah, your work in like developing a voice, I think include it. Uh,
Will the fellowship help place written pieces or advise on how to best pitch editors? There's definitely discussions around pitches, and you meet with editors from various publications for sure. And you're always developing ideas. Can speak to this more, and building a network for pitches during and especially subsequent to the fellowship. During the fellowship, you're actively publishing on Urban Omnibus. So, that's the main focus is in terms of placement. Uh, you know, you're placed already on Urban Omnibus, but you're definitely learning and planning how to pitch and place elsewhere, and definitely plenty of relationships begin during the fellowship that lead to placements elsewhere subsequently. I don't know if you want to clarify any more of that, Ming.
no, I think that's right. Yeah, we have like more specific, we have like modules or sessions that are devoted specifically to developing this skill, but then also, yeah, like throughout you are forming a network and meeting editors who can provide both one-on-one like advice if you need it and yeah, can share. And yeah, you are yeah, you're part of that network once you've been through the fellowship. So, um
There's a few questions about like which piece of the application, how to weight different pieces of the application, or I unfortunately I don't think we can really or we it would be good for us to answer with that with too much specificity. It's always a mix of quantitative and qualitative considerations, but it's largely it's like reviewed holistically by the entire jury. There's no one piece that matters so much more than the other piece. But I would just say, as you consider the whole thing, really never lose sight of the of your presenting your experience and demonstrating your point of view and why this fellowship would be helpful in further developing that toward greater ends. So that's, I think, just broadly, you should focus on telling that story with every piece.
Um,
I think we've covered a substantial amount. If there are any other questions, Jacob or Ming, that you feel are worth highlighting, I'll just reiterate that we're going to review all of these questions, and the most frequently asked questions will compile into an available link for review that will include in a follow-up email to all attendees with a recording of this as well, so you can look back.
mhm.
But I'll leave a few seconds if you want to answer any other additional questions, Ming or Jacob.
I'm just looking at this question about the public program component, and I think, as I mentioned, like this is going to be like defined by the cohort collectively, and is really with the intention to like just further put your written work out in the world by like contextualizing that within a public conversation. So yeah, the format is like a bit TBD, that like that could be inviting an expert that you all like end up deciding to like want to be in conversation with, or you in conversation with each other. I think it is a, yeah, a place that you will have like input. But yeah, basically like the shape of it is that it will be a public like evening event. Yeah.
There's one great question, and actually, I'd love to welcome both Ming and Jacob to speak on this as well, around how have you seen the fellows grow and thrive as a result of the fellowship? I think we've heard from alumni over the past three cohorts that it's given them an opportunity to strengthen and help them define their sensibilities on writing, that they haven't had an opportunity in the past, and we've seen a number of alumni continue to write and publish even in the past couple of months. So. Continue to look out for that, and you're participating in a growing body of New City Critics Fellows that we hope to engage with as a full alumni. So I think there'll be opportunity not only to grow alongside the existing fellows in the upcoming year, but you have an opportunity to engage with past ones as well to learn from them. So I think there'll be chances for them to participate and expand their network beyond just their single cohort.
And one thing I'll just like reiterate is that like for the duration of the fellowship, you are a member at the league and the forum, so you have access to like those networks and programs as well. So, um, like that's a huge, I think, professional opportunity to meet like other people in the urban built environment space.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything more to add to this.
Any last questions to respond to here?
I saw one that about the timing of publication. Like if you haven't published something right now, what happens if you're publishing if the publication date is very like proximate to the application? I think in theory that's not a problem, but it's nonetheless there needs to be a like um it has to be clear that a specific audience was considered that wasn't just, the jury for New City Critics, but was some kind of broader public audience. So even if it's recent, that's not a problem.
Mhm. Um,
I
yeah.
say Yeah, I say we close out. Again, we're going to revisit all these questions that we haven't addressed here, and compile the most frequently asked questions on a web link that will exist both on the League, Omnibus, and Urban Design Forum's website, and we'll also include that with a recording of this webinar. If you want to throw up that final slide, Ming, just with the dates to look out to, we're at the midpoint range of the application window. We're going to close that application Thursday, June 11th at 11:59 p.m. And if there are any questions, please make sure to just send it to submissions@urbandesignforum.org. Thank you, everyone,
Thank you very
and
much.
look forward to reading your submissions.
Thank you so much for joining in for your interest.